So what I'd like to do is to invite Nick, Gerard and Katerina to come round here and join me. And if it's a highly technical question, we may answer it over the coffee break in a one-to-one. So that might be the route. But I'm going to be driven by yourselves, if you want to come around there like that. So here we are. I'm going to start with the first one here, one for Gerard. Okay. Coding is the means of converting human instructions into a machine language. So why get machines to write code for their fellow machines? Is that philosophical or practical?
I think it's very practical. There's always this joke in economics where it's been retold several times. There's a bunch of guys digging a trench with shovels, and there's some mechanical diggers to one side, and they said, well, why are they digging it with shovels? Why aren't they using the mechanical diggers? To which the guy says, well, it's basically work creation. You need to give people work. Right. And then the answer for the economist was, well, why not give them spoons? And I think one thing that we need to remember is that software technology is no different from any other bit of technology that we have. It's all about extending human capabilities. So there's good reasons why we're not all out in the fields, cutting grain with scythes. It's because we mechanicalize it. So I think a lot of human endeavor and a lot of technology going forward, it's all about us developing deeper understandings, recognizing the patterns, and then once we have done that, then we create a technology for it that does that repetitive stuff that we understand, and then we move on to do the things that humans are genuinely brilliant at, which is something more creative.
Right, okay. Gareth, hope that gave a possible response to your thought. I'm going to go to an anonymous now, maybe one for all of us. It says, are government, industry and universities working well together in this area, and are things that could be done better? So is there some glorious collaboration making Great Britain first as we are taking this forward, or are there some deficiencies, in which case you are to name them? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think
Nick.
In general there is quite good collaboration going on between governments, universities and industry, and in my time as an academic I've seen that improve massively, and actually I think that's one of the things we are particularly good at here at Imperial. We are really good at engaging with industry, listening and tackling interesting problems together. I think there are always opportunities to do things better, but I think we do it well. I think the new industrial strategy that's just been announced will let us do that better. It will provide funds to bring together governments, university and industry even further. So I think it's moderately healthy, room for some improvement.
Okay. Comment from either of you?
Yeah, so I have experience from other countries how the interplay goes with academia and the government, and I am really surprised how research and interest in quantitative research is embedded in the UK policy arena. So from my point of view, I think it's really quite inspiring to work with our government partners on some of the questions that we are working on. So we are in close contact with WHO, with the CDC in the US and with other organizations.
Okay.
And yeah, so I think that's...
And I just wonder, maybe a further comment for you. It's a slightly uncertain world as we're finding our new role outside, within, or related to Europe. Just wondering, in this area of research and activity, is that offering a concern and vulnerability as you're trying to build your research platforms forward, or fiddle-dee-dee, no problems at all, onward we go? Who would like to offer a...
Yep, I can do that from a college point of view. So clearly collaboration with Europe is a big part of what we do. So it's about 20-odd% of our research collaborations are at the moment funded through European means. That I think will become harder, determined by the politics, and so I think we will need to do things differently, to think about different forms of relationships. It does give us the opportunity to think about how we can engage, as well as we will with Europe, with other bits of the world as well. So, I think it is a challenge, but I think it's also an opportunity in that sense.
Okay. Either of you want to offer a...
Well, I'll risk making a comment. Like, the fact is, I'm international, a large proportion of the college is international, my family is international. The majority of my research funding comes from, like, you know, industry and other people that are international. Like, I think that I think there's a lot of angst about where government might be going, and, like, you know, populism and whatnot. Like, you know, but frankly, from a foot soldier point of view, who, like, you know, I only care about, you know, science and technology and developing, we're just going to go and get on with it.
Okay, that's fine. There we are. There's one for a coffee discussion. I'm going to go back to the old era if anyone's got. There we are. There's a gentleman with a hand there, and there'll be a microphone coming to you. If you'd like to say who you are and where you're from, it's friendly and a short question,
Derek Dempsey
please.
from FICO. So actually, I just wanted to ask a general question to the panelists. You know, thanks for the presentations. This is about the relationship between HPC and machine learning and AI. So to what extent do we see HPC as really an enabling technology? And to what extent do we see HPC as being more closely integrated with AI and machine learning kind of development? Because it was one of the themes we've sort of had here.
Right.
I've been an AI researcher for 30 years now, and actually what HPC and performance in processing power in general provides is the opportunity to do things that we thought we would like to be able to do, but just frankly didn't have the processing power. So the point was made in the first talk about machine learning. All the excitement around machine learning at the moment is very little to do with the algorithms, because they're well known, well established. An awful lot to do with the fact that we have the processing power and the training data to be able to do it now. And so I really see that as being central. I think sort of the processing ability, and, you know, as I spoke about in the cyber world, you can't do the sorts of things I was talking about without that high performance computing. So for me, they're really integrated. The AI gives you smarter technology, and the HPC gives you the power to do it at scale.
Okay. Do you want to offer an additional observation, or?
Well, I think the lines are getting blurred between these things. Like, I hate it when, like, big data came up as a term, because I think it developed a sense there was them and us, and there was somehow this separation, which is totally incorrect. But I think what we're seeing now today is there's a broader understanding that these things are actually overlapped and intertwined. Right. And really, like, just to add on to what Nick, like, I think it's all actually about the software. Like, say, the algorithms have been there, but largely the software sucked. And I think we are actually getting better at developing better technology that's enabling people to be productive and do interesting things.
Okay. I'll take another one at the front here, yeah. Yes. Just a microphone's coming, lovely.
My name's Bob McDowell. I represent a couple of financial institutions in the Channel Islands. And mine is to do with data regulation and so on, which moves some time behind high power computing and so on. To what extent do you think data regulation is going to be an inhibitor in future?
Who'd like to offer a thought? Katrina?
Yes, I think this is a very relevant question in the area of our research, because we use these identifiable patient records, potentially identifiable. So, I mean, there are at the moment protocols worked out at Imperial in collaboration with the custodians of the data in how to make sure that we comply with the governance regulations. So this is a very, very important point, I think.
Right. Anyone want to add anything?
I think the only thing I add on to that is that this will be where the regulators have to be engaged. They have to move. Because, like, really, they have, if we're talking about seismic data and what the UK own, they hold that, and, like, ultimately they're the only people that can sign a contract to sandbox it and allow people to innovate on it, for example.
Right. Okay. I just wanted, Joe, I might just bring you in here for a moment. This issue around, I've got a microphone as well, look at that. This issue around regulation and, you know, is it fit for purpose? Is it keeping pace with the developments that are taking place, or do we need to put I was going to say a bomb, something, an incentive, a driving force around those who are trying to frame regulation around this area? Or would you not want to offer any comment at all?
Well, I think that's one of those things where it's better to be thoughtful than open your mouth and remove all doubt. I think one of the things that we've been working with governments on is trying to understand the implications of technology. A lot of the conversations that we've had today are about framing, this is what's going on in industry, or this is what's going on in technology, and this is how it's being applied. If we can do that to the regulators, they can now start to try to figure out how to adapt with it. And then it's a matter of, you've used the word, it's politics, national will, policy. But the key thing we're trying to do is just inform so that people can make more informed decisions.
Right, okay. And if you're happy to loiter with intent, because there may be some, because there's a top one that we're not only have we got questions, but you can add favourite to the question as well to get it up the other. There's one for you, Joseph. Here we go. How has the cloud changed the dynamics of the HPC race? E.g., we recently ran 40,000 cores on AWS for a couple of hours for just a few quid.
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's great. We talked about access of people to information technology to go solve their problems. Cloud creates an amazing access mechanism for it. There are a lot of studies on this. A couple of them come from the UK. One says that if you can keep a piece of high-performance computing equipment 55 to 60% utilized, it's generally cheaper. The few quid that you spend will be less if you do it with an on-premise machine. If you just have a job and you have no ability to get it done otherwise, the fact that you can burst to the cloud is fabulous. It's an amazingly enabling technology. Now, you talked about regulation. One of the things that people have to take a look at, especially with big data, is where is the data going to move? Who has the rights to the data? Do you feel comfortable with your data in the cloud? Those are the things that people now think a bit more about if they're in the under 65%.
Right.
But we just think all data center activities are opening new opportunities through the cloud.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to open one up for everybody if they like. It says, here we are. Okay, I'm sold on how I might use HPC in my business. Love it. How do I get it without huge capital expense? Give me some feeling as I jump into this pool that I'm just not going to go bankrupt as I get excited about this money. Who'd like to offer a thought?
Well, again, a few statistics. First, go grab Google and take a look at IDC statistics on the return on invested capital on high-performance computing equipment. If you think about the Audi example, I'll just take the weather example and say that you spent somewhere on the order of $12 million to save a couple billion. The ROI on that was actually reasonable. But the earlier question gave you another one of the clues, which is if you're not sure whether or not you can utilize this and whether or not your business process will integrate that kind of learning, start by using access to, there are people that have high-performance computing equipment that you can gain access to in cycles on and try it. There may be people here at Imperial who have a bit of a better idea on that.
Okay, anyone else want to offer a thought on that?
I would say go and hijack Brendan over there in AWS. Like I think for that type of scenario, if you want to play and sandbox, well then of course it's only like you can get a free account and start mucking around with some stuff and developing up the experience and whatnot. I think it's the obvious thing to do. Like the fact is, like like even for some of the small problems that we solve, we only sneeze and we can burn like 10,000 pounds. So you having a route where you don't need to spend a big bunch of cash in one go. That's always good.
Okay. This is a scary world we're moving into. A question for Professor Jennings. How do you manage security on your personal devices? So it says, e.g., do you use VPN on your phone, Linux CD on online banking, runs VMS on your laptop? Do you ever manage to get into anything, or are you going through codes the whole time? And in a sense, that's an indicator about just this whole area of security, data, personal and business. Is this just going to overtake our lives?
So it should not overtake our lives, and we have to bear in mind that we want to connect things and we want to use things because they have utility. And if they're so complex to use, then actually people won't use them and you won't really get the benefits from it. So it's a trade-off. You can make something really, really secure and entirely unusable and very limited utility to anyone. And so it's a trade-off. So most of what I do, and in fact many cyber attacks, Ian Lobban, who was the ex-head of GCHQ, said that 80% attacks on government networks could be thwarted by simple cyber hygiene methods.
Right.
And so actually just making sure that you patch, making sure that you have sensible passwords, making sure that you change your passwords is the right kind of thing for most people to be worrying about.
Right. And good guys like you are going to always be able to stay more or less one step ahead, or are we going to be overwhelmed by a tsunami of cleverness in cyber attacks and all the rest of it, and this grand project called the future is going to end up in tears?
I think there will, as I said, there will be an arms race, so people will attack in better ways, and they will use better technology and better techniques, as we'll see, which causes the defenders to up their game. Otherwise, you end up losing in quite a bad way. So I think there will always be that balance between attack and defence in that space.
Okay, happy to take another couple of questions in the room. One right at the front here. Yeah, lovely. Just whilst you're doing that, someone from Imperial, how does public cloud feature in HPC at Imperial? So the public cloud. Straightforward question. Anyone from Imperial would like to answer that one? Do you want to, have you got a?
HPC champion, why
Yes.
don't you answer that?
You mean in terms of Imperial using public cloud as part of its provision to its researchers, or Imperial offering? And this is an anonymous.
Yes. Would you like to
Mine
sort
is
of shout?
Answer whichever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder, because you said you're spending £2 million a year on
Yeah.
stuff. Are you spending the same amount on public cloud, or is it just...
No, not at the moment, but I think we recognise that there's a wide variety of activity that goes on that equipment that we own, and actually, if some of that can be provided more economically in public cloud, then we will certainly be using that and spending our capital money on providing higher-end equipment that can only provide what we need. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Can I take one here? Yes.
Hi, I'm Kate Sarrad. I'm from Direct Line Group, and we're the biggest home insurer in the UK, so I'm very interested in connected homes and how that will develop. So one for Nick is, I'm interested why you think manufacturers of connected home devices aren't taking cybersecurity as seriously as, say, other institutions, and do you see it as a barrier to how the public will start to take up these devices?
So I think at the moment it's a sort of maturity and economics argument. So a lot of the Internet of Things devices that we have in our homes are relatively cheap, relatively lightweight in terms of amount of processing power, and actually it's not a differentiator, right? So selling a webcam, saying I have a really secure webcam, you can pay this much more for it, just doesn't cut it in the market, and so that sort of drives it towards the bottom. It's in general, to engineer things properly and well and have all the right checks in is a more costly activity than not. And so I think, for me, I think it's an economics thing. One of the things that really surprised me in government was when we would go along to elements of the critical national infrastructure and the struggles we had to make them take cybersecurity seriously. I found amazing and unfathomable in various times. You know, you're running bits of the critical national infrastructure and you do a whole load of relatively dumb things with that. How can that be so? Why are you not more anxious about it? And I don't know what it will take to get cybersecurity properly lodged where it should be in both the minds of people who run corporations and critical national infrastructure and individuals. I don't know what it's going to take to do that, but at some point it has to happen. We have to be much more serious about this than we are now.
Right. There's some fascinating ones here. I'm going to shift across Katrina, I think. As we learn more precisely the real determinants of life expectancy, will we see longer and longer living? An unvicious circle. One that you might like to offer a comment on?
Well, I think there has been research in other areas of Imperial done that I think predicts that in 10 or 15 years the life expectancy will reach 90 years. I think this is all a happy prospect for all of us, but unfortunately we have to see that this health is unequally distributed in the world, so we need to make sure that we work towards reducing these inequalities.
Okay, interesting. One for you, Joe. There's no such thing as an easy afternoon. Here we are. I missed it. Where's it? Hang on. Gosh, it was a good one for you. Is Intel's market dominance slowing the progress of HPC? Insufficient competitive forces. There you are. You're among friends this afternoon.
Yeah, so
You can talk to Simon afterwards about that.
So I have to actually quibble with something. If you look at the number of intelligent devices, if the processors that code runs on, there's a statistic, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's like Intel participates in about 23% of that. So we still actually have quite a bit to grow, and as we're reminded every once in a while as professionals. I think there are a couple of things. Right now, I've never seen quite the innovation space in terms of high-performance computing processors as I'm seeing now. There are recent announcements here in the UK of new architectures that have come up. There are multiple new ones. The number one supercomputer in China is built on top of an indigenous technology, which replaces a couple of years before indigenous technology built in Japan. So that there's actually an enormous world of innovation going on in high-performance computing. Now, what Intel has done very, very successfully is dropped the cost of a high-performance computing technology by taking things from mass markets and finding ways to scale them, bundle them, to work with partners in ecosystem on interconnects, on memory technologies, on things that Intel doesn't make, on software like we're doing today, and having people be able to get get access to high-performance computing in much, much less expensive ways. The rest of it's just trying to find a way to make sure that your stuff is, the one that people choose to buy.
Okay. All right, thank you. And just a little topical one to finish with, I think one for you, Nick. Will we see a daily cyber forecast in the same way we receive a weather forecast today? Don't travel today because there's Cyberstorm Doris coming. How about that one? So I think, I better not go in today or whatever.
So there are bits of government and bits of critical national infrastructure that receive exactly those sort of things. It's in general not a public broadcast, as you might expect.
Right.
But that's exactly the kind of information that we're able to obtain around key bits of the critical national infrastructure. So as I said, the attacks on bits of that are a daily occurrence. They're happening all day, every day, and actually sort of understanding where progress is being made and incursions are being made and things are being pushed back is exactly the kind of things that we need to be able to do, and government is starting to be able to get a handle on.
Okay, brilliant. It's high time for a cup of tea, but before I release this wonderful panel and speakers, I'm going to put you on the spot. From all the messages, all the information we've heard this afternoon and thoughts, if you want to just leave one thought or an idea or a future something or whatever, just ringing in our ears, or a message to us, whether we are businesses thinking about it, whether we're consultants, academics, all the rest of it, related to HPC and all the rest of it, what would that just be, that one-liner ringing in our ears? This will teach you to be standing next to me. Gerard? Give me I know an academic and a one-liner doesn't go in the same sentence, but we've got to do breakthrough. We've got to disrupt.
Particularly when he's Irish.
That's it.
I would guess that it's not just machines, like you invest in people. Like my talk is about automation, but it is actually the people that's valuable, and you have to invest in the people.
Okay, thank you. Katrina?
So as an academic, of course, I would say it's easy to go into a situation where we do data mining, correlate everything with everything. I think there's still a role for theory that lets us understand how the world ticks and then test this theory with the data we have.
Okay, thank you. Nick?
The best systems are a mix of smart technology and smart people.
Right, thank you very much. Joe?
Encourage your daughters and sons to take up the challenge of building the applications that their children will benefit from.
Right, love it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to our speakers, to our panel. Great stuff.